Alright, today's video is sort of a continuation off of one that I made a while back. I made a video where I talked about my top 10 favorite books on projection-related topics. And since then, I've gotten a lot of questions, comments about, what can I read next? People who've gotten through this first list of books and they're looking for something else to read. So today, I am going through list 11 through 20 of my top 20 favorite books on projection. If you want another list after this, let me know. I'm sure I can dig up a few more good ones. I will tell you quite honestly that after you get through this first list of 20, based on at least what I've read, they really start to go downhill pretty quickly, and it would probably be easier to create, here's a list of 40 books that are an absolute waste of time, than it would be to pull together a list of 10 more really great books on the topic. So here is 11 through 20. We'll start with this. Let me know if you need more after this one. So number 11 on the list, Treatise on Astral Projection by Robert Bruce. So Robert Bruce has written a few different books. I think probably the one he's best known for is Astral Dynamics. I read Astral Dynamics pretty early on when I was trying to learn to project, and quite honestly, I found it to be overcomplicated, and I finished reading it and I really didn't feel like I had progressed any. So what I really liked about Treatise on Astral Projection is that it seemed to take all of that pertinent information, consolidated it down into just a smaller book that was easier to consume, and it was just much easier to get useful information out of it. I've gone back and I've reread Astral Dynamics since, and it is a good book. I recommend reading it, but if you've never read anything by Robert Bruce, I would say start with Treatise on Astral Projection, especially considering that it's free. So I've got a link to that in the description below. Along with the rest of these books, there will be a link to all of them. Some of them are free, some of them are ebooks, some of them you'll have to buy off of Amazon, physical copy or Kindle or otherwise, but I'll put a link to every one of these below. All right, number 12, Adventures in the Afterlife by William Gillman. Okay, so if you're looking for a book that will teach you step by step, here's what you need to do to learn to project, this is not the book you're looking for. You would probably want to read one of his other books like Adventures Beyond the Body that's, packed full of lots of different techniques. However, I really enjoyed this book primarily because I read it after I had had a number of experiences where I visited consensus realities, met people who had passed away, and when I went and I read this book, it was crazy how many similarities there were between my own experiences and the things that were reported in this book. And while it didn't provide a lot of instruction, I always really liked finding those similarities because it makes me feel like this thing is just a little bit bigger than myself, when other people are experiencing the same thing. So that was number 12. Number 13, Navigating the Out-of-Body Experience by Graham Nichols. So if you're not familiar with Graham Nichols, one of the things that I really like about him is that he likes technology, and that appeals to me because I also tend to like technology. He does a lot of things with virtual reality and sensory deprivation, and he's created his own sound files that produce sounds that remind him of the sensations and what he hears as he's going through an out-of-body experience. And what he does is he tries to take these various components, the sound, the visuals, the sensory deprivation, and he tries to combine as much of that as he can, because he feels like if this one component brings me a little bit closer to an OBE, and this one component brings me a little bit closer, if I combine everything together, then my chances of success just go up that much more. Now, I will say I've never had any experience while viewing virtual reality, while listening to audio. Sensory deprivation is just part of this practice, trying to get your body to fall asleep and reach that level of disassociation. But speaking about the previous two, with virtual reality, I've created my own VR roller coaster that goes in a loop where I practice, memorizing the sensations and memorizing the scenery as I go in these loops, so that I can then more convincingly visualize that when I'm in this void state. And that's what I've called the roller coaster technique in the past. And I've used virtual reality to help me build that visualization skill, and that's been incredibly helpful. I also use audio files, things like binaural beats or hemisync, to help pull me deeper into relaxation during meditation, and I find that it helps me relax much more quickly. And learning to relax quickly is an added benefit and probably a necessity if you really want to progress in this practice. So I like that he uses technology to try to push his practice forward. The one other thing I like about his book is that he has a sort of a questionnaire in his book. And as you go through this questionnaire, it asks you, things about your sleeping habits and various other topics. And when you get to the end of the questionnaire, he says, based on your results, this particular approach to learning to project might appeal or resonate with you best, or it might be most effective to you if you do this. So I found that questionnaire to be an interesting approach to recommending an out-of-body type regimen to learn this practice. All right, so number 14, Demystifying the Out-of-Body Experience by Manero. All right, so Manero, I believe that he studied at the IAC, the International Academy of Consciousness, with a guy named Waldo Vieira, a lady named Sandy Gustus, a number of other people who've written things. And I find their approach to be interesting. So Lewis presents what he calls VELO, V-E-L-O, Voluntary Energetic Longitudinal Oscillation. And what this is it's really the same thing as like Robert Bruce's energy bounce technique, if you've read that. It's energy work. It's this generating the sense of energy going up and down your body, this oscillation of energy from head to toe, and then trying to speed that up to get to the point where it turns into the vibrational state. Now, if you've watched my videos, you know probably that, especially very early on, I was not interested in energy work at all. I wanted a practical, pragmatic, here's steps 1, 2, 3, this is how you get there kind of thing. I wasn't interested in any of this esoteric type, what I thought of at the time as nonsense. But I'm really trying to be open-minded with this, and I'm trying to spend more time on energy work these days because I want to legitimately say, yes, there is something to it, or no, there's not. And in the past, I really haven't put enough effort into it to be able to claim one way or the other. So I found this book to be an interesting read. I am working on the energy work. If I come up with any interesting results on that, I will definitely let you guys know. If you have any energy work practices that you feel have been effective for you, especially, if you get to the point where you can actually feel something. So that is my biggest downfall. Sorry, I get a little sidetracked here. That is my biggest downfall, is that I feel like I'm doing this energy work and I never actually feel anything. The one exception to that is I can generate very convincingly the sensation of something moving around on the top of my head, like this feeling of a paintbrush on the top of my head. But, aside from that, I have a really difficult time generating any sort of energy sensations anywhere. So this is what I'm working on. Manero, his book, talks a little bit about that. I'm trying his technique to try to get that going. The other thing that I like about him is that he presents a few different methods for projection, a few different approaches that aren't presented in other books. A few of those revolve around like breathing exercises. Some different content I didn't find other places. So I thought his book was well worth reading. Number 15. Now, I am going to slaughter this name, so if this gentleman happens to be watching, I am sorry. Astral Projection, Amazing Journeys Outside Your Body by Abhishek Agarwal. Maybe. Like I said, link in the description below so you'll know how to spell that. Now, this book, this is one of the first ones that I read when I was trying to learn this practice. And primarily the reason why it was one of the first is because it was free. It was an ebook. At this point, I really wasn't sure how far I was going to go with this. I really hadn't invested much, wasn't interested in investing much at that point. I really just wanted some steps that said, here's what you can do to get some results. And there's so many free books out there that I just feel like are garbage. And I felt like this one actually had some valuable information in it, especially when I was getting started. All right, number 16, Unlimited Boundaries by Ryan Tasker. So Ryan Tasker, if you're not familiar with him, I believe he also goes by the name Xanth, Xanth. If you are a member of the Astral Pulse community. So the Astral Pulse is where Frank Keppel posted for years. Somebody at one point took all of Frank Keppel's, took all of his posts, compiled them into one big, massive book, and I found that to be one of the most incredibly helpful books that I've read. It was in my top 10 with my first video. And what Ryan did is he was familiar with Frank, conversed with him, and he took Frank's approach and he turned that into more of a book format, based it on his own experiences, said here's what works for me, but basically using Frank's phasing approach. And so I liked hearing that other perspective of here's how I implemented this, which I already knew worked from somebody else, and here's how I implemented this in my practice, and here's how it worked for me. So I found Ryan's book to be good. All right, number 17, Less Incomplete by Sandy Gustus. All right, Sandy is also another one of those folks who studied at the IAC. Similar ideas to Manero, just presented a little bit differently. I enjoyed this one. Number 18, New Energy Ways by Robert Bruce. All right, so another one by Robert Bruce. And again, like I mentioned, I'm trying to get into this energy work and trying to validate whether or not this is going to do anything for me. So I've been reading books on this recently, and Robert Bruce's New Energy Ways is one of those books that I'm reading. A lot of the techniques are tactile based. He does some energy bounce techniques, like I said, that are similar to Louis Manero's velo techniques, and I will let you know if anything comes of this. Number 19. So 19 is not about projection, it's about lucid dreaming, but these topics are related, so I wanted to include a couple of these. It is Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming by Stephen Laberge. I think this is hands down probably the best book that I've read about lucid dreaming as far as an approach to learn to lucid dream. Stephen Laberge is actually a really interesting guy if you don't know about him. So there's other people who have done this before him, but one of the things that Stephen is known for is proving that lucid dreaming is a real thing, that you actually can consciously dream. And the way that he did this is in laboratory conditions. They hooked him up to monitors, hooked him up to brainwave scanners. They said, ahead of time, they agreed on a predetermined set of eye movements where you move your eyes back and forth in a predefined pattern. And then what his plan was, go to sleep, get into a dream, become lucid, and then repeat that back and forth eye movement pattern. And the theory was your eyes are already moving during REM sleep. It's something that you can control while you're asleep, is what the theory was. And if he could reproduce this back and forth pattern of eye movements, when he became lucid, he could then communicate to the outside world and say, hey, guess what? I'm in a lucid dream, therefore proving that you can both be dreaming and consciously aware at the same time. So he did this, read his brainwave patterns, he was in REM sleep, he did the back and forth eye movement thing, and proved once again that lucid dreaming is a real thing. Like I said, he's not the first to do this, but I think he's probably one of the best known who has performed this experiment. Number 20, again, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to Your Inner Self by Robert Waggoner. So a lot of the stuff in here very similar to Stephen Laberge, different perspective on things, a lot of good techniques to become an adept lucid dreamer. So that is my 11 through 20. So once you guys get through that, let me know what you think. If you have read any books that you feel like are really valuable, especially to the beginner, to people who are trying to learn this practice that I haven't brought up in my 1 through 20, please share those with me. I'm always looking for something new to read, especially if it offers a new approach or something that isn't just regurgitating the same information over and over again like so many people tend to do. So I would love to get suggestions from you guys. Always looking for something new to read. But that is it for today. So as always, like, comment, subscribe, help me build this community. I will talk to you guys again soon.